Zombies. Zombies are the coolest creatures of movies because you can do anything with them. Behead them, shoot them, explode them. You can kill them with a scythe, with an axe, with a hammer in the head. And it's always amazing to see. Without mentioning the different characteristics that each creature can have. Some of them have a rotting skin, others don't even have skin, some of them are just skulls. Anyway, there's an ocean of possibilities in a zombie movie that it's really difficult to choose what is the best zombie movie of all time. In fact, I don't think this comparison can even be made, because the zombie creature always makes a horror movie good. No matter what is the take of the movie, if it is a more comedic one, or if it is a more serious in tone or dramatic. Many people will say that George Romero's zombie trilogy is the best ever made, and depending on the day I can agree with them, but my favorite horror zombie movie comes from the 80s, of course, like any other classic of the horror genre, and I think it is an example that mixes all these genres that I said, plus it has the most fantastic zombies of all time in movies, in my opinion. So let's talk about the Return of the Living Dead. My name is Gustavo, but you can call me Gus, and let's go. 1985's Return of the Living Dead is a movie directed by Dan O'Bannon. For those who don't know who this is, he is nothing less than the screenwriter of the first Alien movie. That's right, Alien from 1979. And he is a guy who didn't direct many films but wrote many. He also worked with geniuses like John Carpenter or Tobe Hooper from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So he was always inserted in this horror movie genre, and I loved his interviews when he was alive. So rest in peace, Dan O'Bannon. And The Return of the Living Dead tells the story of these two guys who work on a warehouse for human corpses. That's right. The younger is Freddy and the older is Frank. One day they are chatting in the work, talking about corpses, and talking about the Night of the Living Dead. That's right. In this movie, they talk about the classic from Romero as if it was a real movie in their reality. A very meta concept. And then Frank is telling the story that the whole thing they showed in the movie, it's all false. The events that happened in the movie actually happened in real life, but not the way they were portrayed in the movie. And there is a real reason for zombies' existence, and it is a gas that is stored in the basement of the warehouse. So Frank shows this barrel with the gas to Freddy, and it is in fact a real story. And the barrel has also a body conserved inside. But then the idiot slaps the barrel and releases the gas that is stored inside. Then they both get poisoned by it. Not only that, but the gas spreads all over the warehouse and wakes some resident corpses that are stored inside the place. And one of these corpses is a very bizarre zombie that is a yellow guy. He attacks them all, and the two guys are forced to call the owner of the warehouse, that is Bert, a very important character. And first they try to kill the zombie, but since they don't know how to do it, they try to copy the movie The Night of the Living Dead. They attack the zombie's brain, but this doesn't work. So they are forced to behead the zombie, which is a very funny scene because not only the zombie screams in pain, but the two guys, Freddy and Frank, also scream horror by watching the scene. Then they get another surprise because even beheading the thing, the yellow zombie remains alive. So it is established that the zombies in this movie are a little harder to kill. So they have to chop the monster and bring all his pieces to a furnace in a graveyard around. So the owner of the place, that is Ern, helps them to burn all these pieces of the monster. But what they didn't expect is that the gas coming from the smoke of the burned corpse would get mixed with the clouds and cause a rain that would fall all over the graveyard back again. And usually when I'm watching a movie, I don't verbalize my reactions directly to the movie, but in this case, I just naturally did, saying, Oh, that's genius. So while the dead corpses in the graveyards are being resurrected by the rain, we have another plot that shows these punk kids that are friends with Freddy and are waiting for him to finish his work shift. And since they have to wait for the boy for a long time, they decide to make a pre-party in the graveyard. And in this group of punks, there is one specific character that is very iconic. The girl Trash. Yes, is a very appropriate name for a movie like this. Trash. And she has a very peculiar desire and taste for this whole graveyard thing. And she gets excited in such a way that she decides to do a dance for everybody around, but with one specific detail, with no clothes at all. And even though this has nothing to do with the plot of the movie, many people are thinking now, yeah, this is the best zombie movie ever made. Plus, she reveals that one of her desires when she dies is to be devoured by many mouths. You know where this is going, right? So when the zombies are resurrected by the rain, the group of punks are caught in this bad situation and they are forced to look for a place to hide. Except for Trash, who gets her desire fulfilled in the worst way possible. And she doesn't like it at all as she thought she would. So let's talk about the good stuff. Although this movie has so much good stuff that I think is difficult to talk in only one video, but I will try. I remember I loved this movie in my childhood because I used to remember it as a very comedic movie, but watching it now I realized that it's not as funny as I remembered. In fact, it's quite more dark than expected. Starting by the zombies that are a little more indestructible than the usual. You can't just shoot them or take their heads off. You have to literally burn them to ashes. And in the midst of all this, they are very intelligent. And after making some victims, they use very clever strategies to attract more people. Like using the radio of an ambulance or police car and saying, "Bring more cops." And yeah, that's a very funny part. Plus, they run, which is something very unusual to zombies, but is something that makes them quite more scary. And among this army of zombies, you have the most iconic ones, like the yellow guy that I mentioned, but especially one of the best zombies of movies in my opinion, and one that has a very striking visual, that is the Tar Man. Exactly, his name is Tar Man, that is this bean covered in goo and stuff. And even though his whole look is very striking, I think his face is the best one. He's even quite cute if you look at a certain angle. I love that he walks bouncing all around, like he's trying to maintain balance with each step. And when he talks, it's quite genius. As expected, his favorite word is brains. But when he stumbles into the group of punks, he says, "More brains." We also have the half-zombie lady on the table. She is able to force her entry in the graveyard house by breaking into the door that they are trying to make a barricade, but then she is cut in half and brought to the operations table to be analyzed. But this is when the movie becomes very dark because even though it has many comedic moments, when this zombie explains why they like to eat brain, she literally says that is to end their pain. That means they eat brains to kill the pain of being dead. Woo, spooky. And then we have the human characters. By the way, this movie is a festival of familiar faces you might have seen in other horror movies. For example, this punk leader here is the same guy with an axe from the movie Friday the 13th Part 5 that I recently mentioned in my video about the most funny scenes of horror movies. If you haven't watched it, I will put the link right here, because the video is great and you can have a laugh, but watch it after this video here. And I like his performance because he's a punk who is suffering from some existential crisis, talking about the fact that he dresses like that for a reason. You also have this actor here that many people might remember his face from many movies. His name is Miguel Nunes and he is in Friday the 13th Part 5 as well. He gets killed in a great and bizarre scene while he's taking a dump. Yeah, you heard right. Speaking about Friday the 13th, you also have Tom Matthews, the boy Freddy here that works in the warehouse, and he was none other than Tommy Jarvis in Friday the 13th Part 6. You also have the actor who plays Bert that was in another famous franchise that is Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. He plays none other than Jesse's father in that movie, and he's a great actor, by the way. And the best character in the movie, going back to her, that is Trash, played by the actress Linnea Quigley, and she played a very interesting character in Night of the Demons, a movie that I will probably talk in the future in the channel because I love it very much. And there she played another iconic character that was Suzanne, a character that does, yes, you guess it, shows her superior attributes in the most part of the movie, just like here. Plus, we cannot forget that in that movie she turns into a demon, spoilers, and here she turns into a zombie after her attack. By the way, a very sinister zombie that looks a lot like It's the Clown. And these are the best things about this movie. The visual effects are amazing, at least for me they hold up very well for being practical effects. Especially the zombie skulls that are fantastic. The cast performances are great, they sell very well the idea of being in tension all the time. And the transformation of the two characters that got poisoned in the beginning of the movie, Freddy and Frank, is very well portrayed by the two actors, especially showing the pain of the transformation. And the dialogue is very well written by Dan O'Bannon, especially by the punk group in their exchanges. I like specifically the dialogue in the beginning of the movie between Freddy and Frank when they mention that you can buy real human bones from India. And that reminds me of the director that was supposed to direct this movie before, Tobe Hooper from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And he mentioned in one DVD commentary for one of the Texas Chainsaw Massacres that that's true. You can actually buy bones, real bones from India, and they are a lot cheaper than plastic bones for movies. Now, why India sells these real bones with perfect teeth in the skulls, nobody knows. And to finish, the movie has very funny touches that are very interesting. The beginning of the movie is hilarious with a message saying that everything that happens here happened for real, based on real events that actually happened, something that already establishes the movie is not gonna take itself so seriously. But like I said, the whole thing ends up being much more dark than expected. Especially regarding the ending that I won't tell you what it is, but it ends up with no hope to anybody. And this is The Return of the Living Dead, a movie that is very worth your time if you love horror zombie movies. Not mentioning that there are two sequels, Part 2 and Part 3, that I will probably mention in the future. But for now, to watch this one is already enough. An undeniable classic. And what about you? What do you think about The Return of the Living Dead? Comment below and leave your like in the video if you like it, and also subscribe to the channel. Just to remind you all, this is an independent channel that is still growing, so if you can contribute this way, I'm already thankful. But if you can also contribute with any value in my Patreon page, I will leave the link right below here in the description of the video. In there you will find some perks and rewards depending on the value you decide to contribute. But the most important is that your contribution will help the channel to keep going, and especially that we can keep trashing together forever. And this is it for now. Thank you so much. See you in the next Trashing with Gus, and bye bye.